Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi. Amma ba'du. I greet the Mali students, our guests, listeners. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our Saturday morning Ta'aleem, where we're studying the science of Balagha along with understanding Imam W. Deen Mohammed. We're looking at the book, The Treasure Under the Wall, and we're going to be speaking from page 112, the section, The Home with All People, page 112. These sessions, I'm going to start just doing them once a week on Saturdays. Saturdays at 6 o'clock at this time, once a week. I've done a lot in the past, so we won't be doing it on Sunday mornings, only on Saturday mornings at 6 o'clock. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. We're looking at page 112, so you have to go and read, I would say, read page 112 from where we left off, the pages from where we left off, and then perhaps we'll read over to page 114, page 112 to 114. You have to read these pages as students. You have to read these pages to see get the full effect of the presentation, because I don't need to read the pages to you. So this will be on the recording. You know where to go get it, and then look at what's being presented with the Home with All People to get the full benefit of the presentation. And the book is called The Treasure Under the Wall by Imam Ronald Shaheed. He's interviewing, or he has transcribed meetings with the Imam W. Deen Mohammed for some time period. So it's a very, 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 very excellent, very important book to read. So this is what we're presenting from. And we're taking Balagha, presenting Balagha. With the science of Balagha, we can come to understand Imam W. Deen Mohammed. So we begin, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayyatuha, Ya ayyatuha an-nafsu al-mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah, fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Okay. We begin with we're looking from the science of Ilmul Bayan. Ilmul Bayan. It's one of the three sciences of Balagha that comes under Balagha. Ilmul Ma'ani, the science of meaning. ilmul bayan, the science of clarity, and ilmul badil, the science of embellishment. We're looking at ilmul bayan. We may start getting into a little bit of ilmul ma'ani, but we're looking at ilmul bayan, and under the ilmul bayan, there are 4 principles the student should take a look at. These 4 principles. In these 4 principles, there's a sense of comparison. Understand that much. There's a sense of comparison. I may have a time on Saturdays to go over some of these principles for those who want greater understanding. But you have to be students. The students is the one who seeks knowledge. You have to ask questions. You have to seek it. I'm not going to come and just preach to you. This is a different level of studies. This is not a preaching. Just sit back and get a preaching. So the first is tashbih. Tashbih. And then there's istiara. You have tashbih, which is a simile. Istiara is a metaphor. So in a simile, you're comparing. 2 things are being compared. In a metaphor, there's 2 things being compared. In a majaz, figurative speech, there's 2 things being compared. And in the kinaya, there's 2 things being compared. Whether those 2 things are visible, explicitly compared, or whether they're implicitly compared. Whether it's implied or whether it's explicit. So these are the comparisons. So when you're studying Imam W. Deen Mohammed, when you're studying Imam W. Deen Mohammed, you will see in his teachings this idea of comparison. So start there as students. So we're going to look at these four principles: tashbih, istiara, majaz, and kinaya. These are the 4 main principles of al-bayan. There's a saying of the Prophet, the praise and peace be upon him, and many scholars, they echo this saying, that every verse in the Qur'an has an explicit meaning and an implicit meaning. Every verse. So, in these verses that I just went over, and the student, I'm sure the student, they understand the verses, there is no explicit tashbih. There's no obvious tashbih. With an expressed adad to tashbih, there is no expressed tool of comparison. Like ka, mithlu, or ka'anna. It's not here in these verses. However, the whole address functions as an implicit comparison that you will find. And this type of class, it really helps the study of Qur'an. So there's an implied comparison. The tranquil soul, nafsul mutma'inna, the tranquil soul is set in a scene that resembles a welcome guest returning home. That's the implied simile. That the soul is like the tranquil soul, the soul that's at rest, the soul at rest, nafsun mutma'inna, nafsun mutma'inna. This is what it's about. These wording is about the nafsu el mutma'inna. It's the soul that's at rest. So it resembles here, it's being called as though it's being called back home, or it's being welcomed, returning home. So the psychological state is pictured by likening it to someone coming back to a loving Lord and being honored with entry. That's the imagery. That's the implied imagery that you're getting when you're reading Qur'an. This is going to help you when you read. When you read, you want to make images when you read. You want to make pictures when you read. And then you begin to interpret the pictures. The pictures serve as signs. You begin to interpret the pictures when you read. Don't just read and not seeing what you're reading. If so, you'll find yourself falling to sleep while you're reading. The mind will go to sleep. And it would affect you that you will physically go to sleep because you're unable to make pictures. Istiara is the next principle of Ilmul Bayan. The command, Irja'i ila Rabbiki, return to your Lord. That's the simple or the common translation. Return to your Lord. It's the honor for completing the journey of taklifun. What is taklifun? Completing the journey of moral responsibility or obligation. And turning wholly to Allah, completely to Allah. Not a literal spatial movement. When we're saying return, irja'i, when you're returning, there is no literal spatial movement from one place to another. And as we're going through this, as it comes to mind, think about when we're saying we belong to Allah and to Allah we return. We hear this saying all the time when someone passes away. So-and-so has returned to Allah. Yet the speech itself, we have to be careful about. Because the speech can be confusing, thinking that the person is going back to Allah. No, the person is not going, no one is going to Allah himself. that would be shirk. You're not going to Allah. You didn't come from Allah. That would be shirk. So understand that. It's a very thin line of having this concept in religion with no explanation. So this will help you here. This verse will help. So you are turning wholly to Allah. And we're not looking on the other side. Whenever we're studying Qur'an, we're looking on this side of the life, not on the other side. Keep these things in mind. So return here is borrowed. Istiara. The word istiara for metaphor is borrowed. Borrowed. And I'm emphasizing this because you will see istiara when you're reading the Arabic dictionary. You'll see this word istiara. Istiara. That's the verbal form. Istiara. It's borrowed. Because some of you are having problems when you're reading the dictionary. It's giving you the origin of a word, and then it may show you how that word is borrowed to express something else. There's a lot of this in the Qur'an. When you start reading the Qur'an from the Arabic text. So this return is borrowed from physical going back to indicate a perfected existential and spiritual turning back, the rujuu. So it's used. The great philosopher, perhaps if you would like to take a greater look at and expand your reading in this area, you may want to take a look at Joseph Campbell. And I believe it was Joseph Campbell who speaks about how the greater things cannot be expressed directly. The higher ideas, the best ideas, cannot be expressed directly. We don't have the language for it. Therefore, we have to borrow. We have to borrow from what we see and understand to point to, or that will indicate that we do not see and understand. So this idea of your existence, you have a real, true, perfected existence that's spiritual. Your real self. Your real self is not your physical self. The physical body is given to you so that you may express yourself through the physical body. So this idea of returning, we have to borrow from what we see physically to address a spiritual returning that we do not see. And we're saying it's not spatial. There's no space. I'm going from this point in space to this point in space. And this returning back into the embrace of divine approval or divine pleasure and nearness. Spiritually speaking, not spatially speaking. No one is flying through the air and going back to Allah, who's somewhere sitting on this throne, and you're going to sit on the right hand of Allah. That we have in religion, but the mind, though we train the mind in the American school system to not always think literally, many of us still fall into the trap of seeing everything in its literal sense and not beyond that. You make the picture, now you can't see beyond the physical picture you have made. The next thing you know, you're like archaeologists trying to dig up things. You're trying to dig up the bodies of Pharaoh that were drowned in the sea, trying to dig these bodies up. So forth and so on. So that's the isti'adha. Majaz. Now looking at the verse in terms of majaz. Calling it an-nafsu al-mutma'inna is majazun. Majazun mursal. Majazun mursalun. Bi tasbibi is figurative usage based on causation. It's based on causation. Or we could call it majazun lugawiyun, meaning a lexical figurative usage or figurative usage linguistically speaking. Through describing the soul by its dominant effect or state. So it's a soul characterized by full peace, complete peace, full peace, not merely occasionally tranquil. You have reached a station in life that you have reached. You are at full peace with yourself. And you are at peace with Allah. A soul that's well pleased with itself. Likewise, he will say, Radiya Maradiya, well pleased and well pleasing. This is a majazun tajsimiyun. This is the figurative speech we use. When we say nafsun mutma'inna, when we say going back, it's figurative speech to speaking of someone who is totally at rest and pleased with itself. And then here we have this idea of being pleased is figurative. It's figurative of inner states. We're addressing the inner states. Satisfaction and being approved are abstract. Satisfaction and being approved are abstract. Still, they are treated as if they were stable, almost tangible qualities that the soul wears as a settled description. But it's abstract. It's not something tangible. فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي uses majazun fi dharfiyya. Fi dharfiyya. This is like in the an adverbial figure of speech. The preposition fi, in, it does not mean insideness. When we say fadkhuli fi, in my servants, enter in my service, it does not mean physical insightness. It figuratively gathers the soul into the rank and company of Allah's faithful servants. So you may even find translations that say among, enter among. This idea, instead of saying in, you're not going inside of something. It's a state. It is a state that you are arriving to, let's say. It's a certain state, as we spoke of, that is shared by many. Radkhuli Jannati, and enter my garden, is also majazm. It's figurative usage. From a merely garden-like place to an all-embracing state of divine favor. So you see how we're using the comparative. Look, be sure to see the comparative, the figurative speech of a garden, but it's not a garden. It's not a physical garden. If we're talking about a certain state, a state of divine favor and intimate nearness, especially with the possessive my. It shows nearness. When he's saying, might enter my garden. Entering my garden is suggesting that you are close or near in a certain state. And this nearness, this whole idea of returning and nearness is we're talking about, as we started in the beginning, a more fulfilling your moral responsibility and obligation. The soul, the person, you're fulfilling that moral obligation, that you are satisfied, you're truly, truly satisfied with your soul. Not based upon what the society dictates of what's morally right or what's morally wrong, or what's your moral responsibility. Not just how society has dictated, but how Allah has dictated, or Allah has described, or Allah has prescribed in Revelation. So this my is suggesting that you're arriving in that station of life, that you're pleased with yourself and you're pleased with Allah, meaning you're pleased with your fulfillment of what Allah wants in you, or wants in us. Suggesting more than physical location. It's not somewhere you're going to go somewhere. You're not going anywhere. It's a state. The last kinaya. Ya ayyuhan nafsu mutma'inna. We people say you can't judge me. And your life, your religious life is based upon what someone else thinks of you, or what you think of someone else. Well, I was a Muslim, but I don't like those people, so I'm not a Muslim anymore. That's a very low state of existence. We're talking about a state where you're pleasing Allah, and you're pleased with yourself, that you have fulfill your obligations of obedience to Allah. يا أيها النفس المطمئنة as kinaya now. عن نفس كاملة الإيمان, for a soul complete in faith. Complete in faith. That's settled in submission and trust in Allah. مستقرة في تسليمي وثقتي بالله. Settled in submission and trust in Allah. The text does not spell out all virtues, but the description of perfect inner rest, it implies or it alludes to a soul that has traversed struggle and now abides in firm faith. ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. This is also kinaya, seen in the principle of kinaya, an allusion, an indirect indication. عن تمام القبول ورضا الله is for complete acceptance and Allah's good pleasure. Mutual good pleasure functions as an indirect kinaya, in a kinaya way of stating that the soul has succeeded. It's alluding to success in its mission and is entirely accepted. This is what it's alluding to. ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. فادخلي في عبادي. So this has the sense of kinaya, an allusion or metonym. عن الاستفاء لرتبة العبودية الخاصة, for being chosen for the special rank of servanthood. Being chosen for the special rank of servanthood. So where are you returning to? Surely we belong to Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ruju'un. We're returning. Where are we returning to? To the special rank of servanthood. We belong to Allah. I would show you now, or ask me in the class to explain inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un in context of what we're talking here. That's the question to ask in the class. I'm giving you questions to ask. These are questions to ask in the class that will indicate that you're a student. So a hint that this soul joins the elite band of servants who are nearness to Allah, not merely any believing group. Now, all souls are returning, but we all may not be returning as a member of this band of servants. وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي is also kinaya, an, about, or concerning, or of maqamil qurbi wa shuhud. The station is a station, a state of being, nearness and witnessing. Al-qurbi, nearness and witnessing. Now, all the time now, it may be difficult. We're talking on this side. We're talking on this side. Yes. On this side, and if you come to the station, maqam, on this side, you will be in this station on the other side. Since attaching the garden to the first person, my garden suggests a garden of meeting and direct witnessing, beyond just physical delights. Now, let's look at the Akbario-Warithian reading. So this part I'm changing. Instead of showing you Imam W. Deen Mohammed, or let's start with Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi, that's the Akbarian reading. I will give first the Akbarian reading. And then I will give you the Warithian reading. The Akbarian reading is based upon the reading, the teachings, the logic of Ibn Arabi. He was called Al-Shaykhul Akbar. Al-Shaykhul Al-Akbar. The big sheikh, the grand sheikh. That was the title, the name that was given, that the people would call Ibn Arabi. From that, we have the what many of the scholars refer to as Akbarian reading. The Warithian reading I have coined after Imam Deen Mohammed. Is the Warithian reading from his teachings, logic. Now I have fused the two together, and I have coined the saying Akbario-Warithian. So I'm just saying to you, don't try to go to the library or go look up this saying to see where I'm getting it from. I've coined it myself. And this is the writing here is the writing I have done. It's not a copy and paste writing. It's taken from the notes of the teachings of Ibn Arabi. It's taken from the notes of the teaching of Imam Deen Mohammed, addressing what we're talking about here. So I want to say this in the introduction of this. See how this is related to what we went over in the Balagha. The Balagha is a separate science. But look at how this applies to the science of Balagha that will help us understand Imam W. Deen Mohammed. And look on page 112. I don't have to show you everything. You have to be a student. This is the level that we're at. I'm not a preacher. I'm not here to preach to you, to recharge your dead battery every week. I'm talking to students. And you have to be students. You have to have that curiosity. Don't let that die in you, the curiosity for learning and knowing. So now, keep this in mind without me having to point it out to you. These verses speak to the perfected human soul, whose identity is now firmly rooted in the remembrance of Allah, no longer troubled by the chaos of the world. It finds rest, mutma'inna. It finds rest in its true ontological home. On this side, within the universal reality, peace is not merely emotional comfort. It is an existential state of rest. Peace is an existential state of rest in which desires, fears, and self-perceptions are aligned under the guiding light of true monotheism, Tawheed, true monotheism, and the intrinsic oneness of humanity. Yes. Let that settle for a moment. The true monotheism and the true oneness of humanity. The soul is at peace with its desires, its fears, and self-perceptions. Embedded in the genetic memory of all human beings. Some of us are a long way from home. Humanity once existed in the heaven of our souls, the garden of our own souls. We once existed, living in harmony with Allah and the self, symbolized by Adam in the garden. It's in our genetic memory. Just like physically speaking, we're a people who is taken from our home, physically taken from our home, captured, forced, kidnapped from our home in Africa. And that home, that physical home we were taken from, also exists in our genetic memory, and we were brought to a land, a foreign land that we're still in, and many of us have psychological problems. Today, psychologists, sociologists, they look at the African American and see mental, psychological, traumatic influences of the soul in terms of fears and self-perceptions that they're not satisfied with. They are a long way from home. Now that's the physical person. We can see that physically. Here we're talking about spiritually of all human beings being a long way from home and symbolized by Adam in the garden. every individual is subconsciously striving, this is every individual, black, white, or indifferent, is subconsciously striving to return to their inner garden, symbolized by Adam in the garden, to their original identity, not just their African identity, not just the African identity, to the original identity, fully integrated within a community of enlightened spirits. If we can return to our original identity before we were identified as Africans, and fully integrated within a community of enlightened spirits, Ibadi, then we will be at home with ourselves no matter where we are on this planet Earth. In this community of enlightened spirits, the heart become the central point for the expressions of divine qualities. You wouldn't be gods, as some religious people have mistakenly put in their language. You wouldn't be gods. No, you're not gods. The human being in history, they were not gods. Perhaps what you'll be looking at is the expression of divine qualities that you find in the individuals, the people in this community, but not God himself. A person exists in a constant state of renewal, filled with knowledge and awareness, in which each perception is experienced as a manifestation of divine mercy. So, in witnessing this community and seeing how mercy is alive in this community, it's the mercy of Allah that you're experiencing, that you're witnessing, but not so much Allah himself as a person. The people themselves are not gods. You're just witnessing the divine qualities. The divine attributes are being expressed in this community of people. If you study the life of Muhammad the Prophet, the model for all of us, you will see these attributes, how he has lived and have mastered, if I can use that term, these divine attributes. That no, he's not God. He's not the Son of God. He's not the deity. We see we see the expression of the attributes in the human life, not in Allah life, in the human life. The imagery of rivers. The imagery of rivers. Now, which we're looking at we're getting the rivers from page 112. Here's the comparison. The imagery of rivers flowing into the ocean serves as a metaphor for human soul and human life, illustrating how we are inherently designed to seek a greater unity and peace finding fulfillment and contentment. So if you're looking at page 112, where the Imam is speaking of how rivers flow, in their flowing, they're searching, they're looking, they're not at rest. They're not at peace until they are joined in a larger body. Rivers symbolize distinct streams of life. Distinct streams of life that yearn to join a larger body where they are no longer restricted. في جنتي إلى جنتي في عبادتي. See the comparison now in the reading. This is not literal from the book, so you have to go to the book. So see the comparison of rivers and soul. These separate rivers represent various histories, cultures, and individual journeys, all drawn by an intrinsic desire to reach a common fulfillment. This ultimate unity reflects the idea of humanity united under one Lord, one humanity under one Lord, where artificial divisions such as race and nationalism lose their oppressive grip. We are presented with the image of human souls as water. The human soul is like water. There's the comparison. All flowing back to our original essence. That's the shared attribute in these verses. That human soul is like water, and the shared attribute, the Wajhu Shabahi, is that both are seeking. They both are seeking their original essence, the pure nature and heavenly state of our souls that all humans once recognized and are being called to return to. Now, look at how Imam W. Deen Mohammed is showing this when you go to page 112. Look at how Balagha is going to help us understand Imam W. Deen Mohammed. That's the goal. The soul finds true rest when its energy is no longer wasted in conflict. Water finds true rest when its energy is no longer wasted in conflict with its own nature or with truth. Just as water becomes calm when merging with the sea, the self loses its inner contradictions when fully embracing Allah's guidance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.